I can't tell you the level of confusion and complexity behind having various wounds. And when you sit back and examine every single traumatic experience, every single wound that you have from the very beginning, you're going to realize that, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack, and you have to take your time when you do unpack it. But looking back, you realize that this is a lot. I don't honestly, I'm one of those people that I don't even know how the hell I managed all of that. I can look at all these things and I'm like, I don't know how I managed to get to where I'm at. Seriously. With the level of compassion and genuine love that I can feel. And you know what? Even throughout my life, there have been those, I like to call it the OASIS moments, which is when I actually felt like I could be myself for just a moment, which is expressing how I truly feel, and it would be a positive moment. And I say that to say that there have been some good people that I've encountered through my life. But for some reason, when I think about those people, it's almost like, I don't know, maybe they were intended to show me an example of a healthy kind of connection or healthy energy coming from a male figure. That's what I'm thinking, because sometimes, let me give you an example. Sometimes it could be somebody that you meet, somebody you used to go to school with back in middle school, high school, and everything's great, it's great connection and everything. And then all of a sudden, you don't see them the next semester. I guess they moved or something. And it's like, dang, so you lose contact. That's an example. And I can think of a couple times that has happened. But it left me with a positive imprint. And I think that if you've ever encountered a moment like that, I feel like, the Most High orchestrated these events for you to at least be exposed to positive energy coming from the opposite gender, so that you can, in a way, it's like a healing moment. It's like, it's meant to teach you that, hey, every single person of this gender is not a terrible person. And it's like, it's in a way, it's kind of like, it's kind of, I feel like I felt like I was being trained to know and to be able to detect, a good man, basically. That's what it felt like. It's kind of like when they train dogs to be able to sniff out drugs. I know that's a crazy example, but no, for real, like they train them to know how to smell it so that they can find it easily, just like that. The moment that you can sense it, you already know what's in front of you or who's in front of you, right? And that's beautiful. I think that's great. And as I look back, I reflect, like, there were some good times. It's just that it didn't last long. And I feel like maybe because they were not, I don't know, maybe that we just weren't meant to be together, and that could happen sometimes. But I do appreciate the short moments like that, because it happened on different occasions. I'm gonna have to reflect on this, because I feel like it's telling me something. It's telling me these things because it's a way to keep myself grounded, and I think that is healthy to really examine positive interactions that you've had with the opposite gender. That way you're not full of hatred and bitterness toward them, because a lot of times we fixate on the negative, the abusive, the toxic parts, of the opposite gender, and that becomes hatred, right? That becomes a woman hating man and a man hating woman, because it's a similar kind of thing. At the end of the day, it's hatred, right? And we've seen this. In me personally, I don't like to live with hatred and bitterness inside of me, because naturally I'm a loving person. But because of that makes me very protective of myself. And some people might think that I'm overprotective. You could never be too careful, but at the same time, I think that I'm at a level now where I really have mastered strong discernment, and a person that is willing to learn more. And if I'm ever wrong, then I will acknowledge that I'm wrong, but if I'm right, then you can't say nothing to me, but yeah, this is great. It's great because for some of us, we might have encountered, we were pretty much, it's almost like we had to figure everything out on our own, because either the people around us were just out of their minds or toxic or whatever, or there was people that, the ones that were not toxic, we've had some good people around too, but they were not at the level of consciousness and awareness to be able to guide us properly. They were not equipped with the wisdom to properly be able to point out these things. And that's what happens with a lot of us. We were born into certain dynamics where it was kind of unstable. We have an unstable foundation. We have a lot of things happening, a lot of things that are out of our control, out of the control of even those around us. There's so many different events that has happened in our personal life that it kind of, forced us to pretty much fend for ourselves emotionally. And we had to be very strategic in everything that we do. Right. And another thing too, in my case, I've had vivid dreams for the longest, to the point that, some people just couldn't understand me. They couldn't understand the way that I move, the way that I go about things. They just couldn't. So I did what I had to do to protect myself. But I do appreciate those OASIS moments, because I did have them, where I met great people that opened my mind. And I guess in a way it was kind of like, it kind of softened me up a little bit. It made me a little more grounded. But that was just a dose, and it was intended to be a dose of that, rather than, being with them or whatever. Because I wasn't ready. A lot of us, you might have encountered some people that were, I could tell this is a good one, And the reason why, events orchestrated, it's almost like the reason why God orchestrated a way to where you guys go your separate ways is mainly to show you, what a good man or a good woman is like. So that way you're prepared. If you don't have one yet, or whatever the case is to prepare you to receive that kind of love. But see, some of us, we have a lot of work to do before we get there, right? For some of you guys out there, man, you're probably not ready yet, but it's a good thing to have those moments, because it can teach us something different. It shows us a different type of interaction that can exist. And it's very rare, but it's nice, and I appreciate it, and when you think about it, when you think about those people, man, I don't know, it's like they leave a positive imprint, and it just has this sense of nostalgia where you're like, yeah, that it was just a good vibe, and that right there, that can help, that can really help. And I think that if we have more of that, then it'll make a huge difference. Sometimes being exposed to a person that is not soulless, it helps. It helps a lot, right? So yeah, but seriously, I can't tell you how damaging it is, having someone come into the picture and you did not possess the emotional or mental maturity to be able to navigate around such webs of deception and manipulation. I can't tell you how painful it is to have to be in a vulnerable position as a preteen, and you have someone coming into the picture to fill in something that was missing, only to violate that. And when I think about what I've been through, and then I see other people who have been through the same thing, it really bothers me so much, because it's like you have soulless creatures that take something sacred and they basically defile it, 'cause that's basically what they're doing. It is extremely damaging for a young girl to go through something like that, because at that point she will never trust a man again, ever. I'm speaking in terms of like childhood and early adolescence. You know, when we go through these traumas, these traumatic experiences, it's like we weren't given the opportunity to develop properly. So when we went through what we went through, we were very young, and that to me is like, it's the level of damage from that is very severe. You know, with that level of trauma, like you could never trust a man again after that, you know, because for someone to defile a sacred role, right, of the masculine figure in the home, for someone to defile that, to desecrate and disrespect that is just, it's very, very damaging to the core. What's crazy about this is the fact that, right, you're psychologically scarred by all of those wounds. You yearn for something that you don't know anything about, but you know that it exists. Like deep down, you know that there is a healthy masculine energy, right? We yearn for that energy. And because we have been exposed to a situation where someone came to fill that role and we trusted them, we laid our burdens down. You know, we were like, you know, I'm tired. Of course you should be tired, because you're still young. You're still a minor. So you're not supposed, but some of us carried a lot of weight because, you know, because of this certain dynamic that we were born into, you know, and we just did what we could and we were strong. And then someone comes into the picture and we think that, you know, we want to crown them and stuff, but then they end up disrespecting the position of that masculine figure. They disrespect it by disrespecting us. They defile what it truly means to have that, to fill those shoes, right? And that is very damaging. And when it comes in the form of narcissistic abuse and SA, you know, somebody coming into, I see a lonely woman with daughters, and then they come right in and do their evil work, you know, and it's disturbing. And we know a lot of people that have been through this. This is unfortunately, it's a common thing that happens. And, you know, some of us we're survivors of that, you know, including myself. And it's very damaging. And like I said, I reflect back on it, and it's just like the level of grace that I still have is incredible, you know. And I know some people might think that I'm soft and stuff. Like, no, I'm not soft at all. Trust me, I'm not. You know, I've had people mad as hell at me because of how much distance I maintain from people. You know, for example, somebody might see me or whatever walking down the street, and they wonder why I don't interact like that, you know. But you know, I'm a very likable person, but I have kept my barrier. I've kept a lot of walls around me for a good reason, you know, because once upon a time I used to be somebody. Long time ago, when I used to go to the track, I used to often run at the track near the house I used to live in back in Illinois. And there was a guy that he was like, and I see you go to this track often, you know, and stuff like that. And it's crazy because that sounds like a normal conversation, but for me it was like, oh, you've been following me around, you've been watching me. So that's when the antennas start to activate. But I was chill, I was relaxing, right? But because I knew exactly what I was going to tell him. I was going to tell him that I was that I was a lesbian, because that's what I would run with. I was like, well, I'm a lesbian, because I felt like, okay, this guy's gonna try to hit on me or something, because what kind of man says that? Oh, I've been watching you. But anyway, I will run with that. And then he started preaching about God and how, oh, I don't want to see you in hell. No, you're, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, that was not my intention. Like, that was supposed to, me telling him that I was a lesbian, that was supposed to make him stop talking. but it made him want to start preaching. So that was kind of crazy. And yeah, but anyway, I was not, see, I don't have that, like, it's not fear, it's more so I've mastered the art of questioning. Like, I'm like an interrogator in some ways, but I also pay attention. I'm a very good listener. I'm very attentive. I listen to like, why are you watching me? You know, stuff like that. You know how they say when you when they're interrogating you and they say you have the right to remain silent, right? The reason why they say that is because anything you say can and will be used against you. And that's kind of how my mind was operating. I was like operating like an interrogator, because anything that that anybody would say to me, I'm gonna really think about it, to the point of overanalyzing, to the point of, so what do you really mean by that? What do you mean by that? The reason why I'm like that, or I guess you could say that I was like that, because I'm a little more relaxed now, but the reason why I operated like that is because of the experiences I've had in the past of being manipulated at a young age, being manipulated, the SA trauma, the gaslighting, all of that, all the mental abuse that comes along with that really, it causes your brain to scramble into many different places. And also experiencing cognitive dissonance, which is when you saw this person as a good person, a trusted person, and then you bonded with them and everything was great. Like, for them to only do that because they wanted some of you, they wanted to do, they wanted to corrupt you sexually. It's like, wow, so all of that was just so that he can get his rocks off, basically, and try to enslave me mentally and in other ways. To him basically being bound to this person and, having no consent. I mean, there's no way to consent to that when you're not of age and when you're not even thinking in those terms, right? And you've been groomed into this thing. It's a very damaging thing to go through. Very damaging. And then having to go through, being interrogated, like when you speak on, like having to go through people questioning your own story, your own testimony, right? Having, going through the whole legal process and all this other shit. I don't want to get into the legal part, but I have been questioned before. By the time I was 16, I'm over here being questioned about a bunch of different things regarding that. And basically, in other words, the lawyer was questioning me as if I'm not the victim, and honestly, I had to analyze the fuck out of him and his words, because he tried to twist my words, and I was very, very articulate, very sharp at pinpointing how he tried to make me look bad. Basically, he tried to make me look like I was lying. And so because I have been through that process of me trying to get this person away from me, this is the type of person you have to change your locks, all right? Otherwise, he's going to break into your house, and with fake ass apology, fake ass tears, fake ass, like, I'm telling you, man, my second abuser had no concept of the fact that he doesn't understand that SA is wrong. He thinks it's okay, but he did. He to this day, he doesn't think he did anything wrong, which is the crazy thing about these SA predators, is that they don't think that they did anything wrong, and they're going to continue to believe that, they're going to continue to hate the survivor for escaping and for, doing what they need to, especially because I was aware that this person was targeting other girls too, so underage. So yeah, but man, it was a lot of craziness, man. Like, man, I can go on and on. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I have been through the word salad, right? The word salad is when, they say a bunch of stuff intended to confuse you. They might say also they like to speak in terms of, they like to speak with words that have a double meaning, to try to see if they can make you slip, make you say the wrong thing, so that they can flip it and say, see, see what she said, you know, but I was very sharp with it. I mean, very sharp with a lot of the things. And I could think of it right now. I know exactly the exchange. I still remember it to this day. But I like to say is that I'm very proud of myself for being able to hold my own. The Most High has already shown me, you know, what's going to happen when it comes to that. You know, I'm not worried about it, you know, even though, of course, these people, they're, you know, they're always going to be out there. You know what I'm saying? They're out there. And no matter what, and sometimes they have this revenge thing, you know. It's like, how dare you protect yourself? How dare you not allow this person to degrade you and to use you in that way when you never was given the consent to do so, and you weren't old enough to consent either. And this person, they just groomed you into that. You were not allowed to have a choice in any of this, and that's very sick, you know. And the fact that they almost turned you into something else, you know what I mean? They almost turned you into something, and you honestly, man, I was supposed to be a part of the darkness. You get hit with that and you end up with CPTSD as a result, which is something that I have, you know. But you know, I handled it with grace, because I understand that throughout my life, despite the pain despite the wounds that I carry, I did recognize a difference in some cases. I think, man, it must have been a blessing from God, because there was moments where I could just tell that, okay, I could tell this one right here is a good one. You know, I could just feel it, because it would remind me of certain events that happened to me when I was real young. I'm talking like when I was one of my earliest memories, like 3 or 4, you know. There was some of that, you know. I've seen the dark, I sense the evil energy in people, and then sometimes I could sense the divine energy as well. It's like I just feel very comfortable. It feels like home. It feels like an oasis, right? And those are the oasis moments that we experience. And I like to meditate on that, because it helps me understand, so how did this person's presence feel to you? How, you know, and how is it different from the other people, right? Those that hurt you. There's a big difference, because those that hurt you, they can't hold on that energy for long. They can't hold on. And you might think, well, you know, such and such lied for 3 years. That's true, right? But you got to think of it this way. Throughout the process of being groomed, your spiritual gifts and your ability to sense energy, it starts to dull out throughout that process. So it's almost like they love bomb you long enough for you to not have those gifts anymore. So now you don't know. Now, you know what I mean? It's like you lose that sense, you know, you lose that spiritual sense. And now you start to trust in this person to guide you, even though they're leading you to hell and destruction, unless you do what they say, which will lead to hell and destruction anyway, because this is a wicked person. But understand that every single man is not wicked, right? Every single woman is not wicked. But our past traumas can make us believe that they're all the same, because that's all we know. But I personally, in my life, I can speak for myself, there have been certain, you know, masculine presences that have had a divine energy to them, to where I'm like, yeah, I feel like this is definitely different, because normally I don't really like people in general. You know, I don't like most people for obvious reasons. We know most people, you know, they are easily mind controlled, and so they run with whatever lies they're told, which we can't resonate with people that hold on to false narratives and lies. It's just not gonna happen. There's no resonance. You only resonate with real people, those that believe in truth. You know, that those are the people, and you get to a certain point where you can sense that this person is in alignment with God. And if both of you guys are in alignment with God, then you guys are pretty much connected in that way. Spiritually, there's a spiritual resonance, right? Because you're judging based on energy rather than outer appearance. You know, people are obsessed with that. But energy is important, and what kind of spirit is inside this person, and you can tell, right? And that comes through the process of healing. You know, the greatest gift that ever came to me in my healing journey is my spiritual senses have become very sharp and keen, to the point that it's like you could see everything, and it's so relieving, because you're going to find out that the same way that you can detect a manipulative, abusive, toxic person, you can also detect good people. You can detect people that have this divine light about them, people that you can tell that they genuinely have love for you. And that's the part that we tend to forget about, but that's what we need to acknowledge. That, and then you look back and reflect. Think about all the good people that you've met in the past, even if it was for a short period of time, maybe even if it was an acquaintance or whatever. There are people that have passed by in your life that, they were good people, but a lot of times they fly over our head, because we were still going through our spiritual battles. We were going through a lot at the moment. We were not ready to receive at the time, but it was there. And when you think about it, you're like, you know what? Yeah, it is real. It's definitely real. It's very real. We just have to put ourselves in the proper alignment to receive genuine love, and that energy has to come from ourselves to be able to know, right? Because when you feel it, then you'll be able to detect it in others, and then that's how you connect. And that's what I figured out, and that's what came to me today, and that's why I made this video, because I wanted to share that. So CPTSD has a tendency to take you to a very dark place mentally, and it's all about guiding your thoughts in the right direction. Guiding your thoughts, because your thoughts control your reality. You create your reality based on what you feed your mind with and how you fuel your spirit. And so that's why you need that spiritual fuel, so that you have the proper, I guess you could say, nutrition, right? You have to feed yourself with the right stuff, with the right nutrients, basically, so that you can receive, so that you can resonate with more positive energy and positive interactions. And take it from me, because I was a very cynical person once upon a time. I have a smile in my face, but in my mind it was just, hey, it wasn't too good. But no, I like being happy, man. At the end of the day, I still had some good moments, in the past. It wasn't all terrible, but that's all I have to say. I hope everything goes well for all of you guys that are going through it. Remember that you're not the only one, and also, be very good to yourself.